Well, 4 states headed to the polls for the latest round of primaries, with the midterms now less than 3 months away. President Trump-backed candidates went 6-0 last night, including businessman Tim Michels defeating Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch, the former one, who was backed by Vice President Mike Pence. Michels will now face incumbent Governor Tony Evers, who's looking for his second term. Also in the Badger State, Trump-backed Republican Senator Ron Johnson will now face Mandela Barnes in the November general election. This battleground state could impact the balance of power in the Senate. In Connecticut now, Leora Levy, endorsed by Trump, took down 2 other challengers. Levy now looks to unseat Senator Richard Blumenthal in a state that hasn't had a Republican senator in more than 30 years. She will join us on National Report in the next hour. In Minnesota now, Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar barely defeating her pro-police Democratic opponent, Don Samuels, by about 3,000 votes. 2 years ago, Omar won the district by 35,000 votes. She will now face Cecily Davis in that race. Staying in the Gopher State, Dr. Scott Jensen won the Republican primary for governor. He is set to face Tim Walz in November. Jensen joined us last hour. Here's what he had to say.
We're going to have in the month of August have all had the kibosh put on them by Governor Walz. So people are now starting to ask, is Governor Walz taking a page out of the playbook of Joe Biden and just hunkering down in the basement? Or is he going to have a conversation and defend his policy decisions, particularly in regards to shutting businesses down and, if you will, locking our kids out of school?
All right, another busy night of primaries yesterday in 4 states with a clean 6-0 sweep for former President Trump-backed candidates, most notably Trump winning another proxy battle in the state of Wisconsin, where Tim Michels defeating Mike Pence-backed Rebecca Kleefisch in the state's Republican gubernatorial primary. That's solidifying the massive weight that Trump's endorsement still has within the Republican Party. Joining us now to discuss and react is former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins. Doug, good to see you. Thanks so much, Congressman, for coming back on. We do appreciate that. If we could take it step by step, or at least a couple of them to highlight with you in the essence of time here. Michels there. Do you believe he has a good chance of defeating incumbent Democrat Governor Tony Evers in Wisconsin come the general? It's been talked, I'm sure, as you know, that this would be the most vulnerable gubernatorial race that there is. Talk to me about how this could potentially shake up in terms of Republican taking back the state.
I think it's very likely. I think if the Republicans can come together in Wisconsin, you're going to see a very strong push to get Evers out. I mean, this has been just a train wreck as far as through the pandemic and just the liberal policies have been pushed by Evers in the state. I think there's going to be a good contrast here. The main question in Wisconsin and other places is will they actually get out? Is Republicans come back together now that the primaries are over and then vote for the Republican candidates? That's going to be your key. Democrats are going to have their own motivations. They're going to come back to these races. Republicans have got to come together now and show a solid front across Wisconsin. I think it's very doable there with a good campaign, and there's a lot to run against right there.
Minnesota, in terms of you serving in politics, in your seats as well, were you surprised by Ilhan Omar, squad member, far left, progressive, so-called squad member, I should be correct in saying that? She was almost primaried out. I mean, 50% to 48%. What does that tell you about the policies of the far left?
It tells me that she's not as popular as the national scene would make her, make you believe. And again, when you get disconnected, and this is being a former member of Congress and being in these races, one of the things that I've been all over the country and looking at these is when I see incumbent members get disconnected from their districts. This is what tends to happen. Now, Omar has been definitely disconnected. She's had a lot of controversy. I was really hoping that she would get beat last night in this seat, because this is going to probably be still a Democrat seat. But I think what happened is I think she just gotten disconnected from the community in which she represents. And this is a community that has a lot of issues with crime, with economics. And she just is on the wrong side of all of that. So it's really a shame she didn't get beat last night, from my political opinion. But it also shows that I believe that she's got a lot of work to do to represent the community that she has. She held just enough support to get by this primary, but I don't think it's going to be something that she can build on long term.
Yeah, very narrow win there. And to your point of long term, many, I'm sure, other Democrats that want to oust her or take that seat see this opportunity now. There it is within 2024. However, she is all but certain to win out in the general, but there are always surprises. Getting back to Trump-backed candidates, if I can, with you here, and just the power of the Trump endorsement. Yet another one ringing out there in a primary victory. This going back to, though, Washington State, not something that happened last night. We've been watching this. It's taken forever to get in. This is Trump impeacher Jamie Herrera Butler officially conceding to her GOP challenger, Joe Kent. He was endorsed by Trump. Again, a victory here. It took days for this one to play out. Just a note for those watching, this was a open primary, right? So you could essentially vote for any candidate. They all appear on the exact same ballot. Essentially, the top two would move forward. But what does that tell you that the incumbent there has conceded?
Yeah. By the way, also it's all mail-in voting too there in Washington State. It's an interesting mix, but it just tells me that again, the Trump endorsement in a primary, and especially one in which there is an issue such as the issue of impeachment on the table, it's shown to be a very powerful incentive for the challengers to win. And I think this has been a seat that Jamie Herrera Butler has, struggled in over the years. It's been a Republican seat, but there's been some challenges she's had. This one was just a challenge that she couldn't overcome, given the fact of the Trump endorsement, but also the vote in a Republican, from the Republican base. Remember, Washington is a jungle issue, as you just said. So what you're trying to do is the top two vote getters go on to the general election. Now, it could be two Republicans or it could be two Democrats. Typically, it's split between the two. And this one was one in which, the Republican voters were looking to put that person they want on that ballot, and they've chose Kent. And I think those are close out there as it comes, but we're going to see. I think now Kent's going to go to Congress because I think this is a seat that we definitely keep. And there's also some other seats out there that I think Republicans are going to do well when. Keith Swank's out there. He's won the Republican side to be on the ballot this fall. So it's going to be there's some of these races that are going to be interesting. One, though, I want to point out is Connecticut. Leora Levy. That is an amazing move up there. Donald Trump came in last Thursday for Leora Levy. She is a solid conservative in a Connecticut state. It's going to take on that Senate race. Her team had a great digital team. They had a great plan. Then the Trump endorsement came in on top of it. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, she's actually, I believe she's coming up on our program in just a bit here, so we'll talk to her about that there in Connecticut. My main question, I guess, for you is, can she beat Blumenthal? And then other challengers in the generals. What does the Trump endorsement do? As we had another congressional leader on the show earlier saying, hey, Trump endorsements play well in the primaries, but how do they fare in the generals? Doug, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it depends on the candidate. I think we look. Endorsements are great, especially in primaries, and that is true. But the candidates also have to have a message that resonates beyond just their voters. This counts for Democrats as well, because there's in most of these real, what we'll say, tight races, it's going to come down to about 7 to 10% of the population who don't really side one way or the other. And whichever candidate can relate better to them, no matter what they came out of their primary on, they're going to win the race. So, again, Levy's a conservative candidate. Blumenthal is going to be a tough incumbent. Incumbents, here's another thing to remember. Incumbents are only beat less than 1% of any election cycle. This is hard to beat an incumbent, especially an entrenched one in a small state like that. So she's got an uphill battle, but she's a great candidate to do it. And in these other races across the country, that's why I think the Senate is still the place that, from a conservative perspective, we've got to focus on the most, because there's going to be a lot of effort by the Democrats to keep these seats and to flip ones that they can. That's the real race. The House, I think, is gone from the Democrat perspective. It's just a matter of how much. Senate races are where everybody's going to be focused.
Excellent points there. Always good to see you. That is former U.S. Congressman there from Georgia, Doug Collins.
J.P. Morgan's CEO is warning that an economic hurricane is coming. Are you preparing? If you don't do anything, your 401k could be a 201k, and that is not good. So call our trusted friends at Lear Capital. For 25 years, Lear has helped investors own gold to protect against market chaos. It's a good thing. They can help you, too. Get your information and up to $15,000 in bonus IRA Gold. Just call this number, 800-880-4300. That's 800-880-4300.